Hello, everyone. I'm Raga Olga De Silva, or Totally Out Now, as you know me. A very, very warm welcome to you all. At Speaking Minds, we continue our focus on sharing powerful stories, insightful lessons, hosting thought leaders, motivational speakers, industry experts, performers to our online show From the Other Side. I'm the co founder and director of Speaking Minds, India's largest international speakers bureau. In the current stay at home environment, Speaking Minds has continued to offer their clients support for online streaming through the huge repository of talent we manage, through motivational sessions, workshops, seminars, masterclasses. As you know, we also curate cutting edge B2B events online. Wow. So today we bring you a story that will make you sit up, reflect, and hopefully make us all think. I'll take you back to 1990 first before we start. Imagine you're 10 years old and on a family holiday. It's 14th February, Valentine's Day, and you're flying with your mom, dad, brother from Mumbai to Bangalore, all excited for the time ahead. Your flight as usual, you fight as usual with your brother for that window seat. Don't we all do that sometimes? Then the plane takes off. And just a few minutes before landing, the plane crashes. 146 people on board and 92 passengers perish. In a split second, you lose your mother, your father, and your brother. And you wake up in the hospital with 45% burns to your face and your body, and your life literally changes in a flash. How do you cope with this loss? What do you ask yourself? Do you question your luck, or do you think it's life's calling? Now remember, all these questions you have to ask yourself, and you must ask yourself, but you're only 10 years old. I'm going to welcome my most courageous hero tonight, Tulsi Vagjiani. How are you, Vagjiani?
Hi, Raga. How are you?
Tulsi, thank you. So wonderful to see you. You
Oh,
beautiful
thank you
you.
so much. Thank
So
you.
strong, so courageous, so brave. An absolute hero for me.
Thank you. No, even just the introduction was just like, wow, thank you. I think you forget when you're living your life, you forget where you've come from and where you are now. And I guess you never remember the struggles you had because life is so good right now. But once upon a time, it never felt possible.
Wonderful.
So
We have
phenomenal.
so many questions for you, Tulsi. I have so many questions for you, and not just from me, but from the audience who has come in contact with us over the last few days since we promoted this. So, Tulsi, I'm just going to start with something interesting because recently, as you know, there was an air crash, the Pakistan air crash, and 97 people perished. So, I just want to understand when you look at something like that, what are the emotions you go through? Does it take you back to those times?
Yeah, just before we continue, I just pray that their souls have reached home safely and, um, end of the day, God was calling them for whatever reason. But, sending all my love to all the family that, have lost a loved one. But just, just hope they're okay and just going to be okay. And for the two that survived, I just wish them
Yes.
lots of love as well. But yeah, for myself, um, when I heard about the airplane crash, my heart froze because it's in an instant it took me back to where I was, and I guess a reminder of why I've started this journey is because of this accident, this huge thing that happened to me. And here I am now, hearing a story like this, and especially like those who didn't make it just breaks my heart. Like all those families that are going to be mourning, um, and it just doesn't make any sense because they would have said goodbye to them, but not in a sense like they're never going to see them again, and that's
So,
really hard to imagine.
so let me take you back to that time when you went through this. So, what is the first thought that came to your mind when you woke up?
So when I woke up, in my mind, I was still fighting with my brother, sitting by the window seat, and he got his way. Because for the first time, I saw like blue skies and green fields. Like living in the UK, we hardly see blue skies. And this is not the first time because I flew from London to India, but kind of the first time where I noticed the blue skies and the fields. And then I hear my grandmother's voice. Now, I've left my grandmother back in the UK, so her voice is so close. It's not like someone at the other end of the phone. And for anyone who had known my grandma, for her to cry was surreal because she was a very like an iron woman, Especially I like in our Indian culture, we don't, especially the older generation, they just don't cry and they don't
Joy.
show emotions, hold it
Yeah.
in.
Yeah.
So where she was crying and she said to me, your mom, dad, and Kamlesh, my brother, um, have passed away, and that I've been involved in an accident and I look different. I didn't understand what that meant because what does looking different mean when I'm fighting with my brother? But on the other hand, I feel like she's come to India to surprise us. So all these
Oh,
emotions and confusion going on.
so that's the first thing you heard when you woke up, is it?
Yeah,
And so,
that's the first memory.
what did you think? How did you feel at that time?
Well, I was confused thinking like, why can't I see her? But yeah, I could hear her. And why is she on the plane? Like, where was she sitting that I didn't see her?
So
Um,
you had a time lapse basically. That time had not changed for you.
Absolutely. And so it's surreal. And then not I don't know again how much time has passed, but I hear a young medic's voice telling me, Tulsi, you've been involved in an accident. Obviously, there's a big emergency, and I'm going to be looking after you. Now, this voice is completely foreign to me. It doesn't sound like anybody I know. And he's telling me he's going to look after me. I mean, I'm confused. Here's my gran on the plane come to surprise us, me fighting with my brother, her then telling me I look different. It's everything's just confusing.
So when we are unwell, even when we have a small injury or we have fever, we want to reach out to our mom, right? Our mother. So how did you feel at that time when you're not able to reach out to your own mother?
But this is it. I'm calling for my mom. Because end of the day, like you said, you reach for your mother. And like, there's no feedback. There's no feedback. But when my grandma said she's gonna take care of me and everything's gonna be fine, to me, I was none the wiser because I'm used to my grandmother taking care of me because
Sure.
I lived very close to her. In fact, I saw her every day anyway. So I didn't really register what she really meant by that. Then I'm flown back to the UK after a few days, and I'm now met with my other family members, like my aunties, uncles, cousins, who are now in the UK. And it still hasn't registered that I've been flown back to the UK yet. So now I hear their voice, and they pretty much told me the same information as what my grandmother had told me. And at which point now, again, I'm like, wow, have they joined me on this trip as well?
Amazing. So obviously you can't see at this point, right? You are,
Absolutely.
yeah. Okay. So you're bandaged. Your eyes are bandaged. So that's
My
why
eyes
you're
are
only
bandaged.
listening. So that's
Yeah,
why you can only hear them. You can't see them.
absolutely. So I'm talking to them, and again, they're crying. They're telling me the same information, like you've been involved in a plane crash. Your mum and dad and Kamlesh are not here. You look different, but don't worry. It's okay. You're going to be fine. But yet, in my head, they feel like they're on the plane, and I'm more puzzled as to where were they sitting that I
Sure.
couldn't see them
So your mind is also playing with you at that time, right? Because the time has not changed for you. So tell
completely.
me, I remember reading and talking to you about when you first saw yourself in the mirror. So now you're only 10 years old and you've now heard of the loss. You can't really see. You can only hear all the sympathetic conversations around you. And now you're actually going to see yourself. So how did that feel for you?
So yeah, I mean, sort of 4 to 6 weeks post accident, I got told they're going to remove the bandages, and would I like to see myself in the mirror? And I was very, very keen. I was so excited because for me, internally, I still felt like the same person. I didn't feel any different. I was still boisterous, jovial, um, just how I was before the accident. And again, I think, this is important to reiterate. You never change who you are from the inside, but it's the conditioning that keeps coming at you that makes you change. So when they brought the mirror to me, I was so eager, and I think the nurses and the doctors were a little bit like dubious, like, hang on, why is she so excited? Doesn't she understand? And when I held the mirror in front of me, the person staring back wasn't me. And I really believe that somebody drew this face on. I
Wow.
really believe that somebody was playing a prank on me. But the moment the person in the mirror moved their mouth and their eyes, I realized that was me. And then I looked down at my left hand, which was heavily bandaged, but you could see the metal pin sticking out to straighten the fingers. My scars were red raw, and I realized, okay, wow, something has happened. But I guess either naive or optimistic, I truly believe, like in a year's time, this magic cloth is going to take the scars away. So I convinced myself, don't worry, this is fine, it's okay.
And
And
so started your journey, right? The journey
absolutely,
of visible scars.
completely.
And of course, invisible as well, because as I understand, you went through a huge period of darkness, right, which you had learned to cope with. So, how did life feel for you after, as you were growing up from that time to now?
Well, I mean, so when in hospital, everyone just treated me as Tulsi. I was no different. Of course, the nurses and doctors, they're used to um, seeing me this way, so they didn't treat me differently. So when I got discharged, and I thought, great, this is fine. Everyone's going to treat me just as Tulsi. But it's the journey to and from hospital, it's the journey to and from school, it's the name calling, the bullying, people crossing the road in case they caught something, people shouting abuse and all sorts of, you know, just language that I just couldn't even repeat on here. And that became my norm. But I guess when I expressed this to anybody close to me, the general message was, it's always going to be like this, so get used to it. So therefore, it became my norm. So, like the word ugly, for example, became part of my vocabulary. I didn't even know what it meant prior, but when I checked it up in the dictionary and I realized, wow, people see me as this, therefore I must be. So, therefore, I started to carry that word and label myself as ugly. And then being called Freddy Krueger on the street, again, never actually understanding who this person was. So I thought it was somebody very cool. So I went round like, wow, I'm like Freddy Krueger. To then come home and my uncle tell me, this is not something to be proud of. This is absolutely horrible. This is a negative connotation of who you are. You are not Freddy Krueger. That's the guy we watched that film, and that's scary. You are not that person.
Wow. So we discussed this, Tulsi, quite a bit, right, yesterday as well. And we said how stories or how films, whether it is Hollywood or it's Bollywood, for some reason they seem to show people who have visible scars as evil, as scary, as ugly, like you said. And so is that narrative changing? Are you part of that change? Or how do we change this thinking?
No, absolutely. I'm very, very fortunate. I'm an ambassador for a charity called Changing Faces here in the UK, and they consistently are campaigning for change, for people with a visible difference to be heard and to be seen and to be represented. So last year we launched "I Am Not Your Villain" campaign, and
Okay.
it's basically reaching out to the film and TV industry, therefore that people with a visible scar should not be seen as a villain. And this is what we face every day. And the British Film Institute has vowed to not have a character, a negative character, a villain character with a scar. So already things like that are changing.
Brilliant.
Um, there's a long way to go, but the fact that this conversation is now happening, it's
Yeah.
fantastic.
Is so stereotyping, right? And we were talking about, for instance, the LGBT community. We are also stereotyped. You show us somebody totally effeminate, and people will ridicule them, make fun of them, and it's just non-stop, right? One point that I wanted to ask you on television, for instance, on BBC, we still have representation, the LGBT community. We still have representation from the differently abled, but there's no representation from people with visible scars. So you think
Absolutely.
you ever see that happening? That a newsreader, a mainstream newsreader, sits there with anybody and everybody who has a good voice, who can present the news well.
Well, I'm open and available.
I would love to see that happen. Isn't that something that's the day I will celebrate, Tulsi, personally,
Yeah.
because we don't see that happening.
But it is happening in a slow way. Like it's happening where, like, for example, you got I think I'm pronouncing her name right now, Vanessa Redmond, I believe. I can't remember now. Amanda Redmond. Sorry, I apologize. Amanda Redmond, an English actress, a British actress, and she has a burn scar on her arms, and for a very long time she covered up, and now she wears sleeveless and in TV programs. Like, she's in the Good Karma Hospital program at the moment. Fantastic. That's really positive. Another amazing positive person is Katie Piper. Again, with visible difference, but she's a TV presenter, and she's got her own charity, which is an amazing charity, which actually helped me with my confidence about 7-8 years ago. We are seeing it. We are. Yes, it's a little bit slower, but I think movement is now happening, and the more conversations that, like, what we are having is going to have that positive impact, and more people will hear of this. You know.
Fantastic, and I'm sure it will happen slowly. I'd love to see a mainstream film actress or an actor who is playing the lead role with scars. How does it matter? It's, that person has skills, has talent, and I'm sure I would love to see that. And not to have a character sketched around the scars. It's just
Absolutely.
around the story. Now, we were talking about visible scars, right? Beyond the visible scars, there are the invisible scars. How do you cope with those? To me, those are far more bigger and harder than what people think.
Well, absolutely. I mean, in invisible scars, we can call it invisible scars. We can call it, mental health awareness. We
Yes,
can we can call it so many things. But the bottom line is, behind this exterior, there's a story. There's conversations going. We all have a mind. Now, when we have a mind, therefore we are all affected by some kind of thing, right? Now, on the physical, we get hurt, we get a cut, we get burns, we might lose a limb, for example. That's all on the outside. But the inside of the things that all the trauma of all life experiences are stored inside. And this is what we can't see. We can't see beyond the smile. We can't see beyond the exterior. I remember for such a long time, I wore a smile on the outside for so long that no one ever questioned and asked me, Tulsi, are you okay? The generic, hi, how are you? Yes, absolutely. But are you okay? Is there anything you want to tell us? Again, culturally, growing up, predominantly from an Indian background, we are always taught never to show anything, right?
yeah,
We're,
true.
not, we're never taught to talk about our problems. We don't have problems, in fact. It's almost like we're exempt from everything. You know, um, we are not allowed to show anything because the labels of ashamed or, you know, failure, all of these type of words we sit with. So whatever we're going through at that time, we internalize it so much and we can't share it. So we do suffer in silence. And should you share it with somebody, it almost feels like, should I? Because then the guilt starts kicking in.
Sure.
And words around guilt, shamed, don't, we'll disown you, and so many things that we carry and we see, because that's something we've seen in our movies, for example, in Bollywood
Yes,
movies.
right, right.
All right, so a boy meets girl, they fall in love, one's poor, one's rich, the parents disown. That's such a typical scenario,
Yeah.
but we've grown up with that, so we never shared, and I suffered in silence for so long.
Did you
And
ever consider, sorry to see I'm interrupting, did you ever consider giving it all up and saying that's it? Did you have suicidal thoughts? I promised you a very honest conversation. So
no,
feel,
no,
yeah,
absolutely, and absolutely, I would be lying if I said I didn't, because of course I want to give up, because if I believe, if I'm being called these labels and I'm being treated this way, and if all of my life, however long I'm going to be here, is based on this, is it actually worth it? was my kind of questioning. And yeah, I have attempted on a few times.
Wow.
I've stood in front of a bus. In fact, one particular scenario that still sticks with me even now is I was waiting at a bus stop to go to the job center to sign on, because again, finding a job was so difficult based on the way I looked. And I tried to justify it by saying maybe I didn't have experience or things, but it was so obvious it was because of the way I looked. So I was standing in front of this bus stop, waiting for the bus. Obviously, you don't feel great going to the job center and seeking help. But a car pulled up, and there was a set of lights. It was red. Car pulled up, and you could see this bunch of guys in there. There was about 4 or 5 guys in this car, and they were just looking at me and laughing. And so I looked around, thinking, who are they looking at? Maybe it might be somebody else at the bus stop. And when I realized it was me, it really hurt me. And then they actually wound down the window and they called me, "You're effing ugly. You deserve to die. And you should have died." Now, not only hearing that, on the other hand, I feel already useless because I've got to go job center to sign on just to get some money. And here I am faced with this. Again, it was like, do you know what? I'm just going to stand in front of this bus because, to be honest, I don't want to do this anymore. Now the bus is
Mm.
coming. I'm that close to standing. But the biggest thing for me, I think, was I didn't want to let the job center down. But ironically, I guess I didn't want to let myself down, if you look at it that way. So everything was always about not letting somebody else down, which is why I probably did so many things. So I got on the bus, went to the job center, and obviously I was really heartbroken. I signed on, and the lady at the counter did ask me, "Are you okay?" And I just had to look around thinking, who is she talking to? Because somebody actually asked me, "Are you okay?" And I said, "I think so." And she goes, "What's wrong? Like, what happened?" And I said, "I nearly went in front of a bus today." She goes, "Oh, like, did the bus come at you?" I said, "No, I actually stood in front of the bus." And she was like, "Oh my God." Like, she didn't know what to say. And then she kind of like got me water and made sure I was okay. And she goes, "Don't worry about this point. I'll look after you." But I just wanted to get out of there. So I signed. I said, "No, no, no, I'm fine. Don't worry. I'm okay." And literally like brushed it under the carpet and off I carried on with my day. But that incident always stays with me. And I don't often use that bus stop anyway, but every time I go past it, I go back and honor the person that I was at that time and talk to that girl and said, if only you knew life was going to be great.
Yeah. So what stopped you, Tulsi, from taking those steps?
I think for me, it was letting other people down. So, like in this case, going to the job center, I didn't want to let them down. But in all of this, fundamentally, I didn't want to let myself down. And I guess also growing up, it almost felt like I had no choice but to be this way, to just keep going. There will be a better day. I don't know when, but there will be. Surely there has to be.
Tulsi, when
And
I heard your story and I listened to you, and I just want to tell the audience we have got a fantastic audience here, just so that you know, we've got a lot of people listening into you, Tulsi. And I will read some of the comments and feedback shortly before we get on to the next step. But when I heard your story, when I see you, when I've spoken to you, and I just absolutely love you. And I want you to know that this can happen to any one of us. What happened to you is something that can happen to any one of us. Accidents happen. It was an accident. We could be left, I'm going to use the word disfigured. We could be
mhm,
left with so many other things that happened to you, right? It didn't happen. So we have to be grateful. We have to have gratitude and we should thank God for and the universe for giving us this life instead of saying things to people like Tulsi, who have not only faced loss, but the agony and the trauma. Tulsi, I I'm one person, I never have tears. I'm very strong myself from what I've been through. But your courage really touches me. It really touches me. You're an amazing person. I'm going to share some of the comments we're getting, okay? So that I can also get a little bit of a break.
can I say hello to them anyway? Hi,
Yes, of
everybody.
course.
Thank you so much for tuning in.
So we have Natasha Nanda who says hi Raga and Tulsi. And hi Natasha. Anju Ahluwalia, who says hi both. Hi Anju. Josh
These are
Kruna,
my soul sisters.
amazing. They're all here to support you, Tulsi. There's
Oh,
Josh Kruna, who says, I'm so touched by your positivity, Tulsi. He also says, that's a great point. I would like the world that you dream of. Power to you, which is, he mentioned when we talked about having mainstream news readers, right? And he mentions just like Deepika and Chapak, except hers wasn't real, but someone with real scars like that. Of course, she was playing a role, so fantastic.
hmm.
And there are others as well. When I'm talking Josh, I'm talking about mainstream. It doesn't have to be a story. It has to be a Priyanka Chopra, Tulsi instead of Priyanka Chopra. Hi, Raj Singh Rajawat. Anil Bharwani, lots of love to you. You some of our friends have also joined in. Ravi Kamboj says, what a brave girl. Good on you, Tulsi. Thanks, Raga, to bringing her on. Very inspirational. Khyati Arjun Bhatta, I'm sure she's a hi, Tulsi. I'm sure she's one of your other soul sisters.
Another
Manoj
soul sister.
Pushpa says, watching you with Miss Seetal Gami.
Oh,
Manoj Gursahani, who's another friend of ours. Hi, Raga and Tulsi, he says. Anil Bharwani says, you're beautiful and an inspiration, Tulsi.
thank you.
Hema Mehta says, hello, Tulsi. So happy to see you overcome your inner scars. More power to you. And Kathy, it's a pleasure. She says, thanks, Raga, for giving her this beautiful opportunity. Tulsi is just amazing. And Manoj says, lovely chat, Raga and Tulsi. Now, thank you, everyone. Very, very kind, very generous. Please stay on. We've got lots to talk about. Tulsi, now I'm going to come to the harder part of the conversation. Do you think our Indian community, especially, talk about stigma, attach, put pressure on us? And for example, I give you an example. For example, wow. So there is this whole thing of ability and disability, right? I know from my own experiences that if somebody has a limb, they will want you to get married to somebody who also has a limb. So disability, oh, you're only capable of marrying somebody who's disabled. That's the word they use as well. So
Hmm.
how do you feel about that? Have you gone through these situations?
Oh, so valued you bring that up. Absolutely. I think it's time we talk about this. Yeah, why do we as a culture just believe this to be the right thing? Like, do we not look at the mental implication of this? It's not just case of finish school and off you get married. There is more to this, to actually accept another true being into your life. It's a soul connection, it's a heart connection. It's not a physical connection, which is what we're taught to believe. We're taught to believe everything's based on the outside. She's good looking, he's good looking, that's the one you're going to get to married to. It doesn't work that way. Now, I growing up grew up with the fact from the age of 10, who's going to look at her? Who's going to marry her? That's what I knew, right? Growing up is the same conversation from different family members, community members, anyone that I met, especially within our Asian culture. So, having grown up with the words ugly and all of these things, I truly believed that I was never going to find anyone who would love me for just me. So, when I did find somebody who was attracted to me, because they could see past my burns, even if it was for a physical moment, I believed this was everything. But also growing up, family members, like especially like if they're in India, oh, there's a young boy, he'll get married to you, like it was a last resort, like it was something they should feel sorry for me. Oh, there's a boy who's got burns, you and him will get on great. Well, why? Just because we both got burns? What if he's a horrible person?
Correct.
What about that? That doesn't matter. But I could also be a horrible person with a nice person, but no one looks at that, right? Just because we're both got scars, we're going to understand each other. Well, not really, because the journey I've had to go through to work on myself might not be the journey he's gone through to work through himself or whoever I'm going to attract.
So
So,
why all this pressure for marriage or arranged marriage? And why does one have to feel the pressure of being married first of all, and then put into a situation to be that marriage to be arranged with somebody with similar, it's like we always look for similarities, right? Parents look for similarity. So why does the similarity have to be about the physical and not the emotional? That's what you're saying.
Yeah, because I guess no one's been taught that we can change this. No one's been taught that we can change this dialogue now. Nothing needs to be how it has always been. Because just because that was then does not mean that is now. And what works for one person does not work for somebody else. And that's something so vital, and we need to see that we are all individual human beings. We are not one big community, as we like to believe. Okay, community comes together for positive things. It does not come together for negative things.
Sure. So for me, as like I said to you when we spoke, that I have received a huge amount of abuse from the Indian community living overseas, not in India per se. So when I came out, and this is like a long time ago, I was physically kicked. Emotionally, I was a mess because they took an opportunity to say horrible things to me just because I chose to be in a same-sex relationship. Someone came and kicked me, spat at me, hurt me physically. It was a Gujarati woman. So have you experienced this yourself? Abuse, that kind of abuse.
I've experienced physical abuse on the sense like, young children throwing things at me to see what kind of reaction I have, them encouraging their friends, like, throw this at her, see what she has, like, as if like I'm emotionless, like I'm some separate entity, that came from somewhere else. And this all comes from teaching from back home, like within our homes. This comes from how much love and compassion are we actually showing in our family home, because it starts there. Yes, we are influenced also from outside, of course, but we should have enough grounding and foundation within us, enough heart space within us to know that that is wrong behavior.
So do you
And
think the
why?
social conditioning, Tulsi?
Absolutely. And why do we have to continue to act like this is acceptable when it's not? It's just not acceptable on any terms.
I'm going to ask you this question. So, if it is not acceptable, when this happened to me, I ran away from the scene. I was so embarrassed. Felt shame. I felt like I
Yeah,
had done something wrong. I ran away. I got into my duvet. I didn't get out of my bed for 7 days. So, somehow
yeah,
we take it upon ourselves that it is our fault. So,
yeah.
how do we change this narrative, Tulsi? Do you confront it? Do you turn around and say to somebody, no, I'm not ugly? You look at yourself. Do you ever say that?
Oh, absolutely. I've retaliated many times, and sometimes, you know, and if ever you have retaliated, sometimes you feel so small, and like everybody else is looking at you, and suddenly you feel like, just swallow me. Like, I suppose again, I feel embarrassed for standing up for myself. Especially like in the London Underground, as you know, on a busy train, people are looking at you. Now, if you confronted someone, suddenly all eyes are on you, regardless of whatever else is going on. So feeling claustrophobic. So I feel very claustrophobic. Soon as I leave my house, I feel claustrophobic. And I could never understand what this anxiety was. Now that we're in lockdown, and the fact that I feel like I can breathe for the first time is because I don't have to deal with the name calling or the staring. I don't have to deal with the bullying. I've had respite. And I didn't realize just how much for 30 years I've carried
You
this.
carry. Wow.
And every time I've confronted just to stand up for myself because no one defended me, I felt like I'm the one who should be embarrassed, but it shouldn't be me that's embarrassed. It should be the abuser that is embarrassed.
We as a
And
society
there's
should be
no
ashamed of ourselves.
excuse.
Tulsi, as a
Completely.
society, we should be ashamed of ourselves for treating anybody different from visible difference in this manner. I'm going to take a short break and read the comments, and I'm going to come back with
Sure.
another round of questions which are a little more interesting. So Anita Mate says, proud of you, Tulsi. Hats off to your spirit. Stay blessed. Avni Patel
Thank you.
says, so lovely to hear your story, sharing it with so many others, and the audience so proud of you. Namita Bajaj says,
That's my
hi,
sister.
Tulsi. Oh, hello. Namita Bajaj says, hi, Tulsi. You're such an inspiration. Love the way you speak. We've got lots. Anirban Bhattacharya, another friend of ours. What an inspiring conversation. He says, lots of love. Bhakti Shinde. has a question. I would love to know how you convinced yourself if it is okay with the entire situation at the age of 10. Yeah. So at the age of 10, how do you come to terms with this?
Good question. How do we come to terms with this? I mean, I suppose growing up, I was quite lucky because, you know, my family always said it's one of those things that happen. It's not every day a plane crashes, for example, which is how I found the courage to get back on a plane. But also, I think, again, family just saying things are going to be okay. You're going to be okay. Now, okay is it's a small few letters, but it has so much power. If somebody asks you, "Are you okay?" suddenly you are able to say yes or no. But when you ask somebody, "How are you?" we can say, "Oh, I'm fine," like very instantly. But are you okay? So when they said you will be okay, I didn't know what okay looked like. But all I knew is I was going to be okay. And okay has got me through a lot of situations. But equally, as quite a few psychologists have used this quote, and it's very apt, is it's okay not to be okay. And yes, we hear it quite a lot, but there's so much power in that. We don't need to be okay for anybody. It's all right. Like, just allow yourself to be. If you feel sad, feel the emotion, feel the entirety of it. We don't need to make excuses for why we feel sad. We are consistently conditioned to analyze everything, change the conversation all the time. Don't feel sad, be trigger happy all the time. That's not realistic.
Correct. And
And
why should it be? Why should we put that kind of pressure on ourselves, right?
absolutely,
And when people,
absolutely.
yeah, so I always wonder when people ask you, "Are you okay?" or "How are you?" What are they expecting you to say? Because nobody's going to sit down and say, "Actually, I don't feel okay." No, because
Yeah,
when you tell people you don't feel okay and you sit and share with them, they don't want to know either. They run away
yes,
from you, right? They run away from you. So how do
yeah.
you cope with that? How do you cope with those kind of questions? And are you honestly sharing, "I'm not okay," or are you just saying to them, "I'm okay," and people just
To
accept it?
be to be honest, I will say I'm not okay, but I also say I'm working through it, and I know it will be okay,
Brilliant.
because energy wise, comes from our own inner GPS, so to speak. You know who's going to listen and you know who's not. You also know who's going to have that capacity and space to hold space to allow you to not be okay and allow you to share. And then you're also going to know those who are going to run away because they don't know what to do with it. And why is
Yeah,
because they're fighting their own inner scars. This is not a place of judgment or anything. This is a place of trying to understand, hold compassion so that somebody else can grow. And I suppose because I was giving love and compassion out, but I wasn't giving it to myself. But the moment I learned I had to give it to myself, everything changed for me. And that's why I'm able to be in front of you to share my story so frankly and openly, because I am more than my story. I am more than my scars. But I've had to work,
absolutely.
I've
Absolutely. I
put in
can
the
just
hours just so I
imagine.
can help people.
Absolutely. I mean, what you have been through, how the courage that you've had to not only just have a different kind of a life, right? Your life is different, but you've
Hmm.
made the most of it. You found a purpose, and this is your purpose right now. Sharing your story, transforming people. People are getting inspired. And I don't know how many people are listening in and saying, "Wow, and what am I crying about?" I thought that to myself. Tulsi, I'm going to ask you something. And that's a program that I watched a lot on television. I was glued onto it for a while, and that program annoyed me for a long time. The Undateable.
Oh,
I
yeah.
don't know. Yeah. Okay. And the Undateable, the program always had people who were different, right? And and they kind of highlighted and made it mainstream. And I understand fantastic contents, and access into people's lives. But why would anybody call anybody undateable is something that I've never been able to understand. Did you ever look at it and think to yourself, "I want to question this and I want to write to them and say, what is this word undateable?"
You know, the funny part in that is somebody from that program actually contacted me to say, would you like to be featured on there?
Okay. I'm not.
At first I laughed, and then secondly I was like, I felt really offended because again, undateable. Are you indicating that I'm undateable? Yes, there might be a play on words there, and to change, misconceptions and everything. I understand that, but I'm not undateable. Yes, I believed I was because that was me working through my own inner demons, so to speak, and society's versions of I'm not dateable. But I just don't understand, like, how, again, everything's based on the exterior. So, based on the exterior is why somebody's not able to find someone to date them. That we need to change this. Like, this
Ab-
just does not make any sense. And,
Absolutely.
but we live in this. Now, growing up, like yourself, like myself, our first point of social interaction or a vision was like our Bollywood films, for example, right? And we grew up with them. They were always playing in the background or somewhere. Now, our version of beautiful was measured against those actresses that were on screen. Now, that's not reality. We
They
know
don't even look like that, as I said to you the other day
they
in
look
real.
like themselves. Now, how am I supposed to work on myself to look like that when that's not who I am? I'm 5 foot nothing, first of all, and I have hips and curves in all the places that maybe are just not deemed okay by society, but I don't care. Two fingers up to that. But the point is, I was trying to chase something that was not realistic.
So
And all I
how
had to chase was being me.
Sure. So, how is it for you when you date someone, when you fall in love, or when someone falls in love with you? How does it work? And do you have to work harder for it? Do you have functional relationships because of the own, your own scars that you carry within, right? That you have to work through.
Completely. Yeah, like for me, and quite a few of my peers who got burns, and we say this, I guess we have a fast track system to dating because we can vet out somebody very quickly compared to somebody who doesn't have a visible scar on the basis of, like, if they're willing to go past the scars already, they've ticked so many boxes, right? But for them to actually not be governed by the fact that I've got scars and they can deal with my internal scars, that's the winning point. Now, growing up, as soon as a guy was interested in me and it became sexual, like a sexual relationship, I deemed that to be love. I thought, wow, this is it, I'm in love. It did not matter how he treated me. It did not matter if he disrespected me or didn't talk to me or get back to me in a nice, loving manner. It didn't matter. The fact that he saw past my scars, I thought I was winning. And I put my hearts and dreams and goals onto this relationship. And then when it ended, I've gone back. It's because I'm ugly. It's because of my scars. I'm not good enough. This conversation kept coming again and again. Every guy that I met and encountered this with was the same thing. And then you begin to question, who am I attracting? What am I attracting? But it's not until I started my self love journey that my bar raised from like here to like beyond. Because I now know I deserve so much more. I deserve somebody what I give to somebody, and I give 110%, and I expect nothing short of that.
And I
And
believe you have someone who gives you that now.
yes, I do. We've been together what, a year and a bit, and
Wonderful.
you know, him seeing past my scars, it was nothing for him, but it was
Um,
everything for me.
how
But
amazing.
the thing here with him is it's the everyday you're beautiful, and everything that I don't see maybe beautiful about me or I want to change, he deems that attractive about me.
How amazing. We all need people like that in our lives, right? Who love us
Yeah,
for who we are, not for everything else that they think they should love.
completely.
I'm going to read some comments and I'm going to come back with more questions. You don't mind, right? I think we're getting
No,
great engagement. I'm enjoying my conversation with you. There's so much more I want to know. Most important is it luck or is it life's calling? I'll come back to that. Let's read some of the comments. Pushpa says, "Love you, Diva. More power
Oh,
to you." Bhakti says, "Tulsi, brave of you." I'm just going to. Anju Ahluwalia says, "I tell you this all the time, Tulsi. You're such an inspiration to all and glow from light. Proud of you. How beautiful. How
thank
beautiful."
you.
Yeah, Bhakti says she is living life with so much positivity. She's truly an inspiration. We've got Sarita Dasgupta, who's a very well-known author from India, Kolkata. I know Kolkata is facing a lot of crisis right now because of the
Mm.
shock. So, Sarita, thanks for joining in. How brave and inspiring, she says. So, my question now to you is, Tulsi. So, when this has happened to you, and now you've come to terms with it, it's been a while, you know. So, do you look at it as luck, or do you see it as life's calling? How do you now look at life?
Fantastic question. Totally life's calling.
Yeah,
Complete blessings. Um, if somebody asked me what would you change about your life, I would say nothing. I will do this all over again, from the loss, from the visible difference to everything else in between. I will do it again because I'm not sitting here in front of you if it was just luck. It's totally life's calling. It's my sole purpose. This is why I'm here. This is why I'm a sole survivor in my family. This is why I'm here to tell the tale, so to speak, and to help break the stigma, help break these conversations that we have to ourselves or out in the community. This is the time where we say, certain things are just not acceptable, and this is our time to fight certain injustices because we all deserve to live in this world. We all deserve to shine our own light, and we all deserve to be surrounded by love and be loved. That's the fundamental, you know.
sure.
So for me, it's an absolute life calling.
So,
Um,
have you ever questioned life, though? Have you ever sat back over the years and said, "Why me?"
so I've never questioned why me because I've always said try me. I've always asked God to give me more. I don't know why, but I guess now I understand why because so I could share this. But back in 2006, I was diagnosed with end-stage renal failure. So both my kidneys were failing. I was on 15% function, and within 4 months, my kidneys failed. I was on dialysis for 3 years. Now I took that as a pinch of salt in the respect that it's just another day. It's what I do. It's how I cope. It's nothing. It's not a big deal. But it was a big deal because every night I dialyzed whilst in the middle of doing my degree,
Wow.
and how I get through it, which I guess only the divine knows. But I did it because I had no choice. That's what I felt. I had no choice. But really and truly, I was making the right choice for me. And then, one night I get a phone call 2009 for a kidney transplant in January 2009. And again, life is about to change in a big way. And I get this phone call and I thought, great, I'm going to get this transplant. It's going to be great. Life is going to be normal again. Although I was really living a normal life on dialysis. But I was so ill that whole year of 2009. I was practically, resident at the local hospital. And, even the doctors were confused as to what was going on because I was so ill, consistently in and out all the time. And they could not work out what was going on in the midst of a night. Like, if ever you stayed in hospital, it's horrible. Like, people are in pain, the machines are going off, but it's an eerie silence, especially late at night. And I was on sort of a high dose of steroids and immunosuppressants at the time, and I saw Krishna, the Hindu deity.
Yeah.
I was neither nor religious nor a skeptic, atheist or anything. Like, I just didn't have a belief of anything. Growing up, sort of being Hindu, we're aware of all these deities, but I was never really connected. So I see this image of Krishna very, very clearly, and all I remember was, whatever you can't control, surrender onto me. And I was like, where did this come from? I'm literally looking around thinking there's some sort of prank going on, or what's really going on. But Whatever you cannot control, surrender onto me. And it was like, wow, what is this? So again, thinking I'm hallucinating. But so true are these words. I didn't, don't get me wrong, it wasn't overnight practice, but it kept going back like a replay. What I can't control, I need to let go. The more I was doing this with things that I couldn't control, I kept surrendering to whoever it was going to. I don't know it, it doesn't matter. But that's how I'm able to be where I am today, to be able to
Right.
let go of those emotions from my past, the trauma from the past. It's not to say I've brushed trauma under the carpet, far from it, but it's to say I've literally faced it head on, worked through those emotions, worked through the guilt, the trauma, the shame, the stigma, all of these labels, so that I can make peace with my past and be able to be who I am today without conditions, without limited self belief.
Amazing. You are just saying things that I live, just my philosophy of life. But for me, while there is some experience, most of it is words. We say surrender, allow it to happen, make peace with your past, uh, so many things that we talk about to ourselves, self talk, right? Which are positive affirmations. You have lived that life. You have genuinely gone through physical, mental, emotional, soulful trauma. And look at you sitting here so positive. We've got amazing response here. Tulsi Karuna Patel, and I'm sure she's
My
known to you. She
sister.
says, "Hi, Tulsi Bain. Great interview. Brought back lots of memories of a long journey, hospital trips, and stop at the garden center on way back. Love you," she says.
Love you too.
Valerie Lazareva says, basically asking, where do you get your positive power from? So, yes, who is this? Apart from the divine energy, where do you get it from on a day to day basis?
I think it's, we all have a closed heart. Like we're born with an open heart, right? We, I truly believe our first breath is love. The second, third, fourth is then what's put upon you, conditions, expectation, and everything else. Especially when you're Asian, is guilt, expectation. You're going to be a doctor and you're going to be a lawyer. That's a lot of pressure to carry from a young age. So, but the bottom line is, we are born in love, as in the first breath is love. How we're conceived or not, that's beyond our control. But it's what we're conditioned throughout. But if you remember to always use your inner GPS, which stems from your heart and your soul, you cannot go wrong. If your heart is open, that's it. That's who you trust. I truly believe my divine lives in my heart. Like that, my divine is always with me in everything that I do. That the source is within me, you know, and the answers are within me. So it's up to me to tap into. However, if the mind is cloudy,
Yeah.
we will never get to a heart at a fast rate because our mind will kick in and make us doubt ourselves, make us question who we are, make us see all the negative in everything. The key thing is here to quieten the mind so that the heart can speak louder. And I
Sure,
meditate almost 3 times a day now.
sure, sure.
Um,
So do you have a lot of support system? I can see that your friends, family are very supportive, and I've seen your Facebook page. You get a huge amount of love. But has it always been like this, or has it happened over time? And you spoke about your grandparents as well. So
yeah.
tell us more about that. What kind of support do you get on a day-to-day basis?
So I'm so blessed. I mean I cannot even express how much blessings I have in my life because the people like who have just messaged through, these are the people I message every day. Good morning, how are you? And if I have not done it, they've done. It's an everyday thing. So I have that. I have that in abundance. As for all those who follow me and comment, they're all walks of life. I've met them, be it from a school or a job or just on the street. But they've always been those people flying the flags for me. But I never knew that. I never knew what they were trying to support. They just held space for me, and I didn't understand at the time. Sometimes it feels like they're just pitying you or they feel sorry for you, but it's not. They just had genuine love, but I couldn't accept that because, the thing with us as humans, we're all able to give. but we
Yeah.
find difficult to receive love.
Yes. Yes. Unless you reached a point where you have done what you've done, right? Made
Yeah,
peace, let go, like Hema says, let go, something we don't do easily. Your energy is amazing, she says. Surrender to the superpower which I guess is within you. So true. It's like when you are in peace with yourself, I think that's so much easier for one to receive as well, not just give, right?
absolutely.
Vaishali Sangal says, Tulsi, you're amazing. I just welled up to what you said about surrender. Just what I needed to hear, love. I'm just trying really hard to stay calm and focused. This is I've learned so much, Tulsi. So, Tulsi, the lockdown eventually will be relaxed. How do you feel about? I know you shared your, reservations around it. So, how do you feel about going out into the world again?
I don't want to go out. Well, no, I do want to go out, of course. There's wonderful souls I need to meet, especially like my family, my soul family. Gosh, I need to hug them and just show them the gratitude, I guess. But I'm also nervous. I would be lying if I said I wasn't. I've had this amazing break. I've had amazing break from no judgment, no name calling, no one crossing the road. I get, look, we're living at the moment, we're all wearing masks and gloves and whatever we're doing. We're crossing the road in case we catch this virus. But my biggest thing I leave you with is catching a smile is more contagious than a virus. Let's spread that. Let's
Yep,
spread that. So
absolutely.
I've experienced what it's like crossing the road and people catching something. I get
Mm,
that. And how many friends and family have now said to me, "Oh my God, Dulcie, I fully understand what you've experienced, what you have had to experience when people look at you as if you this disease. People look at you as if like, oh, I'm going to catch something for you, or you're just not needed in society." That's been my last 30 years.
wow, it's
I've
so
had a
shocking. It's incredible, how we human beings are. I just find it incredible, and it's at least been disbelief sometimes, Tulsi. But I've seen this, I've heard this so many times, and that is why we keep bringing these kind of stories, and that is why we are in this space, the corporate space that we talked about, where these stories are actually making changing the narrative, and that is what we do at Speaking Minds. Our idea is to bring stories like yours to the world, and I think younger people, the younger generation that's out in the workforce right now, they need to listen to these stories so that we are molding them in the right way. Because at the
Mhm.
end of the day, a lot of it is to do with social conditioning, as we know. You know, uh,
Completely.
in the LGBT community space, which we are spokespeople for now, taken me a long time. I wish I had started 20 years ago. I ran away from it from shame, from guilt, and I wish I hadn't done that. But I guess the time is right now, and I see
Yeah.
a huge change, and it slowly trickles down. But one little change is what we need. There are many, many things I've read about you, I've researched about you, I've talked to you personally. Yesterday, when I spoke to you, you had just come out from the A&E, and I thought, wow, look, and you were so cheerful, and you were just talking to us like it was the most easiest thing in the world. And I know how difficult it would be for you on a day-to-day basis. One line that I saw on your website, which I loved, and I thought I'm going to bring that to the audience today. You have said, I breathe in my courage and exhale my fear. I'm just thinking, when we meditate, people, and we breathe in and breathe out, can we breathe this in and breathe out fear? Because all of us, start our day, our life from fear. We are so petrified of everything, about judgment, about what people will think, what people will say. Let us just be. Breathe in courage and exhale fear. I love that line. And you said, I
Mhm.
breathe in my courage and I exhale my fear. What
Yeah.
beautiful lines. Is there anything that you want to leave the audience with before I conclude this session, which I don't want to?
I think, going forward, like the reason I know why I'm here is to spread love and compassion. And for me, humanity, serving humanity has always been within me. And I didn't quite understand why or how. Fighting injustices in the school playground I was doing. And here I am now as an adult. I'm not, I'm here to do that. I'm not here to take things lying down and saying this is how it is. My thing is, no, this is not how it is. This is how it can change. And with love and compassion, obviously comes kindness.
Yep.
If we carry that and spread that, the ripple effect of that is going to go far wider than hate ever will. Hate has to die somewhere, and hate can only die with love. So the more we raise our heart vibration, the more we're going to see change. We can all say it, but we all need to now practice this. And this is where I'm all about. And, I've come on this mission to complete this, and this is what I've come to do.
It's a beautiful mission, and you found your purpose, and we are all in gratitude of you, Tulsi. It's almost like you've been through trauma so that we can get inspired and learn from your courage. So, thank you for being our flag bearer. I will read some messages from here. Hema Mehta says, Raga and Tulsi, you're both such wonderful souls. Thank you, Hema, for always being so supportive. It's very kind. Vaishali says, Raga, lots of love and power to you for doing such a fabulous job. And this is such a beautiful conversation. Thank you, Vaishali. We need people like you to just encourage people like me and people like Tulsi and all the others to come onto this platform on the other side. Pushpa says, great questions, Raga. Answered with such positive energy, spreading love. Tulsi, I agree. Such a beautiful conversation with two beautiful souls. Thank you, Raga and Tulsi, for your time. Thank you. You see, the glow is all on Tulsi. Look at the light on her.
Oh, thank you,
See,
divine light.
like please send some here. But I really loved talking to you. I promised you a candid conversation. I've tried to ask as much as I could that could be, that could help the audience. I will be online. We will be here for another 2-3 minutes. Anybody has questions, please feel free to ask. Tulsi is here. We are in no rush to leave. Valerie says, you're really magical. Thank you. Since long time I'm with you and so happy to speak with you. Tulsi, that's wonderful from Valerie.
Oh,
Raj,
bless you, Valerie.
Raj Singh Rawat says, stay blessed, Tulsi. Thanks, Raga, for having Tulsi on the show. It's
Thank
such a pleasure, such a pleasure. Tulsi, I bring in many, many people here, very interesting people, people who are, talk about the Kama Sutra, people who talk about former hostages who are coming on next week, first double amputee summit, Mount Everest, such achievers. Your story is a big achievement for me because this story now, we're going to take it to the world. I promise you that. Very good question has coming from Vaishali. Beautiful question. Vaishali says, how do you define forgiveness?
So forgiveness is something I feel has been very important in my journey. Um, I don't forgive somebody for them. I forgive them for me. So therefore, I'm not holding that emotional baggage anymore. And releasing emotional baggage allows me to fly higher, feet on the ground, but wings in the sky. And that's how I live.
So, Tulsi, that brings me to that question that I wanted to actually ask you, and somehow it kind of got lost. Is the 1990 crash was deemed as a pilot error, right?
Hmm.
That's what the media said. So, were you ever able to forgive that and move on from that?
Completely. I've never held anyone like in a negative aspect. Again, I made forgiveness very quickly, just simply for the fact because although I was there in person, I wasn't there with what decision the pilot made or not made. I wasn't there because the way the engine was made or not made. I wasn't there because of the weather condition or not. I just happened to be there so that I could be here today. And looking back on it, I have no negative views of my accident or anything that happened, even till today. And I suppose growing up, where I was taught is one of those things that happen. It's not every day you see a plane crash. That stayed with me. So I guess I never held that bitterness.
Wonderful. So beautiful, pure soul, Tulsi. You're getting such amazing comments. Anju Aluwalia, you're very kind to say very nice things to me, but the focus is on Tulsi. I am just who I am, and Tulsi is the person that needs to be revered today. She is wonderful. I've learned so much from you, Tulsi, today. I'm going to share your story with the world. That's a promise from Speaking Minds to you, Tulsi.
Bless you.
So, thank you very much. I feel gratitude towards you for sharing your story and your lessons with us. I pray that you continue to find the courage within you to stay strong, Tulsi. Wow. And you're sharing you with us, and I hope you continue to share that with us. I pray that this world learns to love us for what we are and who we are. And I pray that none of us ever take our lives and every moment for granted. That's my prayer, and I hope that I'm not being idealistic. So thank you very much. Thank you to our wonderful audience. And I have to thank Nicola Fenton, who makes this all happen. The Facebook Live couldn't happen without Nicola's help. So thank you, Nicola.
Thank you, Nicola.
We will be back tomorrow again at 8 p.m., half an hour earlier, with another guest who is an actor, poet, and a very well known actor for that matter, Divya Datta. And if you're interested in reaching out to me for about this session, any feedback, questions, you're welcome to. I am on Totally Out Now handle. Thank you, audience. Tulsi, I want the lockdown to end with one purpose in mind. I want to come and give you the biggest, tightest hug.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to that.
We look forward to do it. And is there a last message you want to give to our Indian diaspora around the world?
I think, look, just it's one day at a time, and fill your day, with as much love and gratitude as you can, because gratitude is going to take you a lot further in life than ever moaning about the situation that you can't possibly change. What you can change, do, but what you can't, surrender, let go, and just embrace the day for what it is.
Thank you so much, Tulsi.
Thank you,
Namaskar.
everybody. Namaste.